Part 43. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 422. 422 Surabaya Pier. Some restless Baijia received the voice. Although she was uneasy, she thought that Yekong would take good care of her son, which was only a little comfort. She couldn't help her. She had to take care of the medicine garden orchard and wait for them to come back. Baijia was sitting in a daze at the medicine garden, and saw the little girl running in. After a year of getting along, she and the little girl also had a good relationship. She also liked this beautiful cute little girl. Even moved the idea of letting Dao to do daughter-in-law. However, thinking of her father's ancestor, and her son is still the most inferior root, she buried her thoughts in her heart and did not dare to say. Watching the little girl come, Baijia yelled, "You dead girl, you haven't been here for 3 days, so that I was so worried, I was worried that my son would find you didn't come." Huh. He's a jealous little devil, it's abominable to dedicate a dedication and a bonus for a while. Duo scolded the little devil, and said, "Actually, I'm not coming. I'm not afraid he would ask me for a gold sculpture. In fact, the golden eagle is not a good thing, but it has been with me for a long time, and I can't bear it." Baijia laughed, "Just rest assured, he went out to practice, he will not return in a few months." Duo hummed, "It's better to die outside and never come back." Baijia smiled bitterly, "It was childish, you cursed my man to die outside in front of me. Is this too much?" Duo noticed Baijia's embarrassing expression, and was a little embarrassed. She explained at the moment, "Sister Bai, I have no other meaning, I just don't want him to come back and bully you." "Oh," Baijia flushed. "How did the little girl know about Li Xianxia and me? But I wish he bullied me every day." The more they talked, the more embarrassing they were. Hurrying to change the topic and said, "Sister Bai, I'll teach you the magic of linked yen." Baijia smiled bitterly, "I'm a mortal, I don't even have a spiritual root. How can I learn spells?" Duo laughed, "Relax, this is a spell that every mortal can learn." Baijia was startled, "Is there a spell that mortals can use?" Baijia held her hand with a smile, "Sister Bai, you don't know about it? I heard that there is a place where everyone can practice. At night, the moon doesn't know where to do bad things. The sky is like a black curtain. Countless starlights are like the eye of a needle that penetrates the curtain, making people want to explore the secret behind the curtain." Yekong took Chen Baixuan, the ancestor of Huang Quan, generally referred to as Chen Baixuan in the future, to the Surabaya Pier in Wukuo. Surabaya Wharf is not in Surabaya City, but it is not far away. Compared with Surabaya City with its dark lights at this moment, Surabaya Wharf is full of enthusiasm at this moment. The porters are busy, throwing huge sacks into the cargo hold. This can be seen whether the practice of Lingwu is different. Those who have trained Lingwu can carry 3 bags at a time without any effort. A bag of Lingwu has been difficult. Yekong believes that if Angguo and Wu state go to war, absolutely the Wu state will have the upper hand, not to mention the others. It means that there are so many spiritual martial arts practitioners in Wu state, the logistics supply is faster than Angguo. Of course, this is also his wild thoughts. There is no possibility of war in Angguo state, and the middle mountain range is a natural barrier. Yekong had changed his clothes, and Yun Fuzong's disciple, with 5 golden clouds, was so eye-catching everywhere, so Yekong changed into a blue gown and walked slowly with 12-year-old Chen Baixuan. The lights are brilliant. Huang Quan's ancestors have swallowed Chen Baixuan's soul. As soon as he accepted the boy's thoughts, Huang Quan's ancestors couldn't help but lament that this 12-year-old child is even more vicious than himself. This kid not only hated Yekong, but even his mother and everyone around him hated it. According to his ideas, first kill Master, then kill his mother, and finally all the women of Master. It's simply poisonous like a viper. As soon as Huang Quan's ancestors said, Ye Kong was even more guilty. If he kept the kid alive, not only himself, but even Bayer would also suffer. But what made Huang Quan's ancestors depressed is that Chen Baixuan has not yet developed, and a small thing looks like a weak little finger, which makes the ancestor very unhappy. Don't hold me, do you really think I'm 12 years old? Chen Baixuan glared at someone and shook off someone's hand. Hey, shall we pretend to be a little bit better? Without pulling you, do others know that I am your father? Someone proudly took advantage. Chen Baixuan had nothing to say. After standing and rolling his eyes for a long time, he handed his little hand to Ye Kong, humming in his mouth, "Smelly boy. You're ruthless. However, I will never recognize you as a father, if you my old friend knew that I had lost all my old face." Ye Kong thought about it. With his ancestor's temperament, if he wanted to take advantage of him, he would definitely not agree, and he was a bit lacking in morality. That's it. If you meet a monk, you are my apprentice. Anyway, now that you are practicing the 5 Elements Ascension Sutra, you also learned from me, and you are not a loss to be my apprentice. If you meet a secular person, how are you, my brother? Although it was still a bit deficient, Huang Quan's ancestors agreed to it. Although it was a bit deficient, it was not too much, and Ye Kong was 18 years old. Now he is 12 years old, but he is a bit like a brother. Okay, my ancestor, I will lose a little. Chen Baixuan nodded a little head, and then said, Master, please give me some magic weapon, your jade sword is really bad. Oh, not old, I want to say you, I want to. Stop. Ye Kong quickly stopped the old boy from recalling the old days of bravery. He would have heard cocoons in the south capital city. In fact, Ye Kong had already thought about it and said, that jade bowl was eaten by the golden-winged ants, and it will not be good for you, but Chiu Qiangguang's golden light beads and 3-point flying sword can give you, according to your present. As far as mana is concerned, it is probably difficult to manipulate a Chinese-grade defense weapon and a top-grade flying sword. Others will talk about it later. Chen Baixuan thinks it's not bad either. These 2 weapons are 1 offense and 1 defense. If they are handled properly, the power is already very good. However, he never said anything good on his mouth. He scolded himself, I have no conscience, my ancestor, I will give you birth and death. Just take some garbage out of the dead and give it to me. Forget it, I will use it barely. As for controlling the magic instrument, don't worry about it. My ancestor, although I have very little spiritual power now, but I have a strong sense of consciousness, and I can control 5 magic instruments at the same time. Ye Kong snorted and ignored him, knowing that this guy was not convinced. The use of object control magic is the key, but spiritual power is also very important. You can control 5 magic instruments at the same time, but time can only be calculated in seconds. The spiritual power is worn out in an instant. How do you control the magic weapon? They talked and walked. After a while, they came to a noisy place near the pier. Ye Kong looked up and there were actually several monks gathered there. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 423. 423 Monk Bodyguards. I saw a small square in front of the pier, surrounded by a group of monks in the middle and late stages of gas refining. The voice was loud and I didn't know what they were fighting for. Boss, ask me, it's okay wherever I go. Let's go. Don't look at me lowering it, but I have very good skills. Ye Kong and Chen Baixuan listened to doubts. Generally, the monks in Kangnan are very low-key, and they do not want to reveal some treasures. How can they say that their instruments are very good? Isn't this robbing? Go and see, Chen Baixuan Lala Yekong said. Ye Kong looked up at the monks, seemingly dressed in chaos, and there was no familiar face in them, neither of them seemed to be Yun Fuzong's disciples. He then pulled Chen Baixuan up. When I approached, I saw a few ship boss figures standing in the middle of the open space, surrounded by a circle of gas monks, and in the hands of each ship boss, he held a big sign with the destination, time, and a few spirit stones. For example, Ling Qicheng half a month, 10 spirit stones. Jan Fang Cheng January, 20 spirit stones. Yekong looked strange, and whispered an old man around him. The old man laughed. The predecessors are afraid that they may be disciples of Xianxia or foreign casual repairs. The Wuan River water pirates are in trouble, and the merchant ships in the past are unbearable. Therefore, everyone should bring a monk when sailing, and the water pirates would not dare to come. Oh, this is the case. Yekong smiled. It is estimated that those who are scrambling to be bodyguards are afraid that they are all casual repairers. There is no place to earn spiritual stones. So they have to make some money. I think those big disciples will not come. Yes, even Yunfu Zongguitang's disciples have 10 spiritual stones to worship each month. Whoever made a little money here would earn more than the worship, but the time for cultivation is gone. Yekong thought about it again and asked, Lao Zhang, are those shui cows' cultivation high? The old man shook his head and smiled, Senior, shui cow is not high, and it is good to have your disciples practice, but the boss of the boat can only choose the highest one here. Yekong heard it and couldn't understand it. Instead, Chen Baixuan spoke. He was discerned as someone's disciple at first glance, and he was upset, saying, What's so difficult to understand? If you don't ask me to be the highest person here, I am afraid that some of them are not water pirates. It has also become a water pirate. Yekong heard it and immediately ignored it. There are a lot of monks here, if you do nt ask for the highest. Hey, the boss of the boat is in trouble, and the one who repairs the highest will hate it, waiting for the boat to go to rob you. Chen Bakshan said that the monks were stunned. After all, being called water pirates made them very unhappy. But when they looked at Yekong next to Chen Baixuan, they took a half step back. Cultivation is the strongest in the world of immortality, and they practice these refining qi, and when they see the real people in Zuji, they see cats like mice. The old man smiled and said, You disciple, you are so old. Chen Baixuan proudly raised his head, said that he was stronger than someone, and he was still my teacher? Yekong blushed, and as soon as he was about to speak, he saw the boat bosses coming over. Let's go to my boat, there are spirit stones and beauties. Yekong laughed, no wonder these casual repairs were rushing, and there are still many good things. Everyone, I'm not here to be a bodyguard. I want to take a boat to the southern capital. I don't know if you have a boat on the way. It doesn't matter if you don't give spirit stones. Yekong didn't know the location on their brand, and had to say straight. Several ship bosses suddenly shook their heads. It seems that their destination is far from the southern capital. Those casual repairers heard that the boy was not here to grab business, and a happy expression appeared on his face. Another monk hurried up and said, Senior, these are all boats heading upstream. When you go to the southern capital, you have to find the downstream boat. And there is no port in the southern capital. A boat was going to Engong just now, that is the nearest port to the southern capital. Xie Daiu Yekong heard the overjoyed. Although he had not been to Engong, he also heard the name. Engong city was only 100 miles away from Nandu. When Yekong walked in the direction of his finger, several monks whispered, You don't want to die. The ship that went to Engong just now has been settled by 2 real people who built the foundation. Isn't it because the world is not chaotic? The monk laughed, They are all real people who build the base, let them fight for it, and I'm not mistaken. Leave this guy, what kind of spirit do we earn? Not far ahead, Yekong, who was walking slowly, could not help shaking his head and sighed, The monks in the Kangnan continent really are selfish to the extreme, and there are traps even if they ask for directions. After Yekong finished speaking, he waved slightly, and a little golden light mingled among the mosquitoes on the dock at night. This is a golden-winged ant with Yekong's knowledge. In fact, I didn't expect these, it was Huan Quan's ancestors who made him like this. Yekong thought he was very careful, but who knows, many traps are unimaginable. Should we go back and pack the kid? Chen Baixuan said. Yekong shook his head and said, forget it, he didn't say anything wrong. When we come out this time, we will have less disputes, and keep a low profile. There are already monks on that ship, and I can't wait to kill them, Chen Baixuan said again. Yekong laughed. How did you know that you killed? Just said Loki, you can't provoke things if you can't provoke them. We just need to be safe and secure to the southern capital. Don't delay time for these broken things. Soon, when I came to the ship pointed by the monk, I saw that the ship had stowed the sternboard, hung the sails, and was ready to leave. Hey, owner, wait a moment. The ship was not small. Yekong and Chen Baixuan jumped onto the front deck. Immortal, please tell me something. The skinny ship owner with a towel on his head came up, feeling depressed. I already have a bodyguard, you are late. I heard that this ship is bound for Angong, so we want to take a boat to Angong. Oh, we do need a spiritual stone, we just take a boat. If we encounter a water pirate, we can also help, Yekong said politely. The owner of the boat was naturally happy when he heard it, so the monk bodyguards who do want money are good, but unfortunately you are late, otherwise I will not invite those bodyguards. Although the owner of the ship was very willing, he did not dare to offend the 3 monks who came before. I heard that the 2 men were still real people who had great powers in the Xianxian family. Xianxia, old man, I'm honored, but, can I let me know a few monk bodyguards of this ship? The owner of the ship didn't dare to offend, and said carefully. Yekong also replied politely, oh, no matter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 424. 4. The boat owner walked into the cabin, and soon brought 2 young men, 2 men and a woman. I saw that the 2 men were wearing the same gowns and had yellow and gold arrows on their sleeves. There are many schools of cultivation in the Kangnan continent, each with different marks. Yekong, who is the marker of the Daemon school, knows each other. Yekong, the marker on the sleeves of these 2 people, does not know it. Both men are in their 20s, and their cultivation is not low. One is a 3-story building, and the other is a mid-building. Yekong didn't think that such a monk came to take over this small business. Bachan also wants to take a boat to return to Angola. When I went to see the female monk, Yekong's eyes brightened. The female practitioner's midterm cultivation was, in the 2nd or 8th year. She was young, but she had a beautiful eyebrow, a pink mouth, and a small appearance. But Yekong's eyes were bright because the girl seemed familiar, but she couldn't remember seeing them. When the 2 male practitioners heard that someone was taking a boat, they weren't happy. Seeing this boy staring at his sister, they were even more unhappy. Cough, the male repairman in the middle of the construction period coughed, attracting the attention of the black-faced monk on the other side, and then asked, Daoyu, we have already taken the task for this ship, and please ask Daoyu for your convenience. Yekong busy said, Dao asked, not to be a bodyguard in the next, just want to go to Angong, want to take a boat, I don't know if you can make it convenient to go down. The middle-aged male repairer was naturally unwilling, and replied, Dao, the boat to Angwo is not so nervous. It is not available today, and tomorrow. I suggest you to find another one. You can take a boat and earn a spiritual stone. Buddy is not as poor as you. Yekong drew another fist and laughed. This Taoist, a person in Zana Angwo, has been away for a long time and is homesick. He doesn't care if he earns a spiritual stone. He just wants to see his family early. Is also possible. The owner of the boat quickly waved his hand and said, "Hey, why is this so? Just take a boat, we welcome the immortal master, no need to use the shipping fee." The midterm build-up male scholar was very dissatisfied with the welcome of the boss, and said, "I didn't say welcome." "What did you say to welcome?" forcing me to agree. "Old man, can't you tell which side there are many people?" But at this moment, a nice girl's voice rang around him, "Uncle Juan, he is just homesick and set up a pickup boat. We are also on the go, and it is convenient for everyone. My master also told me to go out and look down. Repair." The young girl speaking near her was very low. Only the Uncle Juan heard it, but Yekong watched them speak and guessed that the nun was helping herself to speak. So Yekong smiled and nodded to the female Xiu Yao Yao as a token of gratitude. I did not expect that the female Xiu was so ashamed that two red mists floated on the white powder face, which looked good and tight. Uncle Juan was said by the nun, and only nodded and said, "Okay." After the three said, they turned around, and there was a voice far away. "Sister Lu, how many times did you say, 'I am your brother, do nt call me uncle?'" Yekong shook his head. Even the sister-in-law named Juan couldn't figure it out. He thought he wouldn't do well. If he changed to himself, he would guarantee that the sister-in-law would be awake. The happiest is the boss. It was clear just now that they called each other Daiyu, no one called senior, and 80% of this young immortal teacher was also in the foundation period. There are 3 real people on a boat, not to mention water pirates. Even the ancestors of water pirates would not dare to come. These are about to become the capital of bragging for him and other boat bosses. Subsequently, Yekong was taken by the enthusiastic ship boss to the back cabin, and on the way, 3 beautifully dressed mortal women were also encountered. Yekong couldn't help but glance at it twice. The owner of the ship quickly introduced him, and he was the wife on board. The so-called public wives are public, in fact, they are secretly secret. The sailors sailed for 10.5 months, and they were lonely, and they were raised as a tool for venting fire. The owner of the ship was kind enough to invite someone to use this tool, but how could someone fancy such women? Entering the cabin, the boss of the ship retreated and sailed. Yekong closed the hatch and left. "Old man, it's boring to see you, it's better to go to your wife." "You don't bother me, how could I do that? When did my taste go so low?" Chen Baixuan gave him a white look and sat on the round stool with a big grin, sighing, "There is a real body, that it feels amazing." After he said it, he thought, "Oh, the 3 monks don't know which martial arts. Inquire about it, the foreign martial arts disciples enter the Wu kingdom. Bachan is related to your Yun Fuzong." Yekong laughed. "I sent the gold-winged ant to keep up. How could you really be a rookie?" A cabin not far away. On the small square table, a bronze lamp holder embedded with finely divided moonstone was exuding dim light, and the 2 men sat opposite each other. "Brother Wan Yang, shall we go back? But the rumors of the Kangnan catastrophe have not been confirmed, otherwise we will stay for a while," said the young male practitioner who had not spoken. A middle-aged monk named Wan Yang shook his head and said, "Brother Li Wei, can't you see? It's useless to stay any longer. That kind of news is far from what you and I can inquire about. At least we know Yun Fuzong now. The establishment of the Juzwen Lingling formation has trained a large number of disciples and foundations. In fact, this news can really explain the problem." Li Wei nodded. It seems to understand the joints, and he sighed. "It is estimated that only the high school big factions can know the details, like us Xianxia family can only listen to the wind. As for those casual repairs, it's good." He only knew that others had split the spectrum. There was disaster, and he didn't know how to die. Neither of these disciples noticed that a tiny life under their table was listening with his head up. Yekong's consciousness is not very strong, and the spiritual knowledge hitting the golden-winged ants can only be heard by borrowing things, not by things. All peeping cannot be achieved, and only peeping can be heard. Listening to them chatting, Yekong nodded. The news of going to the north of Kangbei, let alone the Xianxian clan, is not known to ordinary disciples in the big faction. These monks must have heard something from a certain Xianxian family, and sent Yun Fuzong to inquire about the news, but after listening to them for a while, they did not hear them say the teacher's gate, so which Xianxian family, Yekong it is also unknown. When they talked about casual training, the brother Li Wei asked, what kind of way did the brother think that the monks were, one big, one small, and one small one? Wan Yang laughed, it's just two poor casual practitioners. What's the fuss? The water pirates, at most, are the young monks in the middle of gas refining. They can't practice anymore, so they fall into the grass. That the monk is a companion of the water pirates, what can I do? Li Wei also laughed and laughed. The young monk was a useless coward at first sight. It was ridiculous that the monk took the initiative to pay mortals for the boat. It was ridiculous that I had to blackmail him until the border of Angguo. Ha ha. Both monks laughed at the same time. To the reader. Yesterday, the bricks reached a new high of 141, and Xiaoman added a chapter today. Thanks for the support. By 150, Xiaoman will fight again next Monday. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Jian Yi. Chapter 425. 4, 2, and 5 leaves empty bounty. Yekong smiled bitterly as the monks discussed. It seems that these monks are really bad. Reasoning for themselves, they think you are bullying, and they are rare to be low-key, but they are regarded as unafraid. Well, buddies are waiting for you to blackmail. At that time, hey, I do know who is hacking. Yekong listened for a while, but still didn't hear which Xianxian family they belonged to. At a glance, the two monk builders should be a little famous family. I didn't hear it, Yekong didn't even care about it. After all, they just came to Surabaya city to inquire about it. They couldn't come to the door because of it. Yun Fuzong was not so overbearing. But Yekong suddenly remembered that the girl monk had never appeared. Wouldn't she come out and attack me? Yekong was tied inside, but then he found that he was a soldier. Although monks in Kangnan were cold and selfish, they were not all that. The female monk also helped himself to speak just now. Besides, from the surface strength, these people do not need sneak attack even if they do it. Have you ever rested? Suddenly the woman who wanted to go outside suddenly asked. No, no. Huan Quan's ancestors jumped off the stool and opened the door, only to see a woman in a gorgeous dress standing outside. Yekong turned his head to look, it was the one of the three in-laws who was pretty Zhou. Looking again, the woman was carrying a food container in her hand, probably for delivery. After the foundation was built, the valley was basically cut. Yekong could not eat food now, but Chen Baixuan did not cut the valley, and the ancestors did not want to eat the grain gluten, so they took the food box. There was fish, meat, and vegetables in it. I also eat refreshingly. In the dining room, the woman was on the sidelines, peeping at Yekong from time to time, making someone feel uncomfortable. These women were leaning against the door to make fun of them, but they didn't know how big they were. Then they suddenly hugged Yekong. Yekong was startled, raised his leg conditionedly, and kicked the woman. Later, when I asked, I found out that the woman wanted to take the initiative to serve Yekong. Every mortal woman wanted to touch the fairy Yulu, and she would not hesitate to get rid of her illness. Asking the reason, Yekong sighed, you can keep your peace by doing some things. Don't think about it, you can't get it. The monks are vigilant. I just kept it. If other monks are afraid of you at this moment, the soul will return to heaven. Looking at the woman kneeling on the ground with her belly still begging for forgiveness, Yehalo softened and gave her a healing elixir for her to eat. Then she found out a few pieces of silver and threw it to her. After the woman left, Huan Quan's ancestor laughed and cursed, Your boy is really incomprehensible. I was sent to play by you, but I was kicked by your stomach. My ancestor laughed to death. Ye Kong shouted, then you go and play. Huang Quan's ancestor shook his head and sighed, however, you are weak and helpless, the birds are hairless and not high. This matter should have ended, but who knows that the woman went back and told the two women, the silver rewarded by the fairies, the two women also came from the recommendation pillow. Ye Kong was so disturbed that one person threw 2 silver mules. Subsequently, Ye Kong took Jing Guangzhu and other magical instruments to Chen Baichuan, and prepared to set up a spiritual practice to let him refine the magical instruments. But at this moment, Ye Kong heard the woman's shattering footsteps sound outside the door. Damn, really good people can't do it, annoying. Ye Kong was a little annoyed. He took out a silver mule and threw it out of the door. He yelled, hurry up and take it, I'll be welcome again. Having said that, the nun who took a bath, changed into a clean dress after taking a shower, and felt relaxed and comfortable. She knew that Wan Haipen missed her mind, but the girl's heart was not on the boy, so she would rather go to watch the moon alone rather than chat with them. Depressingly, when she passed by a door, she suddenly heard a roar inside, and then rolled out a silver mule, 2 or 2 in size, through the gap between the 2 fingers. The female repaired a moment, and was a little confused, but she still kicked the piece of broken silver back with a wave of jade feet in pale pink embroidered shoes. I rely on it. You still can't help it. Yes, somebody holding the array of symbols to prepare for the array and saw that piece of silver mule rolled in again. Ye Kongxiang had an attack, but imagine that he is also a poor woman, and he has bad money, so why bother? Subsequently, Ye Kong simply touched a small 12 yuan ingot and threw it out. It can be seen that in a blink of an eye, the ingot was kicked in again. 12 are too few. I'll give it to you for free. Take it, Ye Kong kicked out again. He didn't talk outside and kicked in again. Okay, it's a football game. To say that both of them have excellent ball skills, the gap in the door is so large, so you come and go, kicked more than a dozen rounds, and never hit the door frame once. Ye Kong Gli was annoyed, and no matter what else, he kicked in when he kicked in, looking at Huang Quan's ancestor sitting on the side like an idiot. But the man outside was happy, holding the logo skirt, holding back a laugh, playing with joy. Even more exaggerated things appeared. When someone kicked out the 12 silver mules with a big foot, and then rolled in, it turned out to be a 52 gold ingot. You know, most people can live for 1 month with 5 or 2 silvers, and 1 year with 52, but this is a gold ingot. With this ingot, it will be enough for 10 or 8 years. Ye Kong and Huang Quan's ancestors both stared straight. Someone said suddenly, it's too exaggerated. Isn't it so rich to be a wife? Is it because I look at the eyes? The outside nun finally couldn't hold back, and gave out a clear and giggling laughter. With a smile, she showed her figure, and she couldn't stay any longer. She hurriedly skirted her skirt and hurried to the rear deck. Wow, the cabin door opened, Ye Kong stretched out his head, just to see the figure of the shy girl flashing out of the passage. Ye Kong seemed to linger on the virgin fragrance of his body. Interesting little girl, Ye Kong smiled, holding the ingot of gold ingot, and closed the hatch again. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Jian Yi. Chapter 426. 426 Exchange Experience. The next few days were a bit dull. Ye Kongbu played the battle, allowing Huang Quan's ancestors to refine several instruments, and he was protecting Huang Quan's ancestors. He also had a few things to do. Refining Qiu Jianguang and Yefeng's souls makes it easier for the Xiaofeng Wolf King to devour. Then it is necessary to study the square-shaped Sleepy Fairy array. Although the range of this array method is only between square inches, the layout can be very complicated. 48 flags are used, and the area of the array is infinitely larger than that of square inches. It seems that this array must be arranged first, and then attract others to be hooked. If it is in a hurry, there is no time to arrange it. In addition, since Huang Quan's ancestor woke up, the two haven't had time to talk about what happened later. Hearing how much happened later, Huang Quan's ancestor couldn't help sighing. I didn't expect this kid to be so bold and so direct, provoked Yuan Ying's 6th level monk. But then again, if it hadn't been for King Mingwu, Ye Kong wouldn't have had so many adventures, and he wouldn't have seen the soul of the old man, nor would he get that many benefits. Ye Kong took out the Zikang token, and Ren Huangquan's ancestor lived for more than 100,000 years. He did not know what the token was used for. As for the names of Wuxing Sanren and Shisan, they have never heard of it. However, what interested Huang Quan's ancestors most was the new edition of the 5 Elements Ascension Classic. In particular, the Wudanhua infant Dafa seemed to open a door. Ye Kong has never had Dan, and he has never been a baby, but these were all experienced by Huang Quan's ancestors. He naturally felt differently. These 5 elements are indeed very imaginative. 5 different spiritual roots are formed into 5 golden dandelions. Alas, it is difficult to imagine how powerful it would be if they were trained. It is very difficult to get the praise of Huang Quan's ancestors. Easy, and the 5 elements scattered people have the feeling of admiring him. Ye Kong nodded, and his heart was looking forward to the day when 5 golden dandelions were produced. He said, and once these 5 dans are completed, the cultivation speed will become faster, as if I have become a monk with 5 heavenly roots, and changed from the worst qualification to the best qualification. 5 times. Yeah, before I only heard people say that the Yuan Ying reborn was born outside the incarnation, then there are only 2 Yuan Ying, and the qualifications are the same as the original. If these 5 are the Tianling root Yuan Ying, its mana is unimaginable, catching up with the ancient monks a million years ago, Huang Quan ancestor said longingly. He thought about it and asked, after you said that the foundation, the 5 auras became a 5-color cyclone, without waiting for Ye Kong to answer, he also said, in the past, when people built the foundation, they all felt the change of qi and si. It's strong, the airflow becomes agile and majestic, and it hasn't been heard turning into a 5-color cyclone. Ye Kong replied, the sea of air has become strong and the airflow has become agile, but how can there be a cyclone overbearing? I found that after the achievement of the 5-color cyclone, my speed of absorbing aura has accelerated a lot. It is strange that the speed of cultivation it is still getting slower and slower, so that for 2 years in the Juzwen Lingling formation, I only improved 1 level and less than 2 levels. Well. Huang Quan's ancestor fell into thought, and this thought was for several days. The two researched and studied like this, and then talked about it. After blinking for more than half a month, Ye Kong did not go out, including a water pirate midway, and Ye Kong did not come out, so that even the boss of the ship had a little belief that the monk was a coward. In fact, Ye Kong probably knows things outside, but those water pirates are all used by Zhuang households. There are 2 monks who built the foundation period to pass easily. What do you want buddies to do? Buddy, aren't you cowards, when you blackmail me, don't you know? As for the somewhat interesting young lady Xiu, Ye Kong didn't even contact him. After all, everyone just met by chance. It's hard to say whether they can meet in the future. Why bother people? On this day, Huang Quan's ancestor, who had been thinking hard, suddenly opened his eyes. I have an idea. Oh, Ye Kong put down Jade Cambodia in his hand and looked up at Huang Quan's ancestor. That's it? I have initially grasped the principle of your Reiki cyclone. Let me first ask you, do you feel that Reiki cyclone slows down as you practice and ascend? Ye Kong closed his eyes and realized for a moment, then he opened his eyes and replied, yes, it seems that the spirit cyclone is turning a lot slower than when it was just born, but this kind of deceleration occurs in the days and months. You can't really notice it if you do not pay attention. That's it. Huang Quan's ancestor nodded, as if guessing the key, then said, if I didn't guess wrong, there is only one reason for you now. What? Balance. Yekong is also a person who knows at a glance. Hearing Huan Quan's ancestors said the word balance, his eyes flashed. Yeah. It's a matter of balance. If the leaf of an electric fan is particularly large, one is getting smaller and smaller, so of course, it will become slower and slower, and the center will shift. Yekong said to himself that Huan Quan's ancestors were inexplicable. What is an electric fan? Oh, you don't care about it. Yekong quickly closed his eyes and performed the exercises. Sure enough, he felt the imbalance of spiritual cyclone operation in his body. The strong civil and water properties squeezed the white metallicity into a thin line. When the spirit cyclone spins, the civil water properties are the same as those of a scale. After a while, Yekong opened his eyes and said, "Our ancestors, don't say it, you really guessed it, it's really a matter of balance. If you continue to do this, maybe I will encounter a bottleneck or become enchanted." The ancestor of Huan Quan immediately smiled proudly and said, "You kid is still my master. I see you, you should worship me as a teacher." Yekong grinned, holding Huan Quan's ancestors, and laughing, "We are good friends, and we care about these. Who is whose master, that's hard to say. But then again, you will encounter this problem in the future, now facing the problem for both of us, how do we solve it?" Huan Quan's ancestor did not realize that he was dragged into the water again, and then bowed his head and meditated silently. Yeah, in nature, it is civil water and aura, which is relatively strong, and the fire property is second. How can this metallity be enhanced? Where can there be powerful majestic metallic aura to absorb? The person sitting next to Ye smiled proudly. He let this ancestor to such a difficult and in-depth problem. Come to think of it, Buddy can't think of it. At this moment, the voice of the ship's boss sounded outside, "Two immortals, wake up." Listening to his call outside, Yekong couldn't help but grin, making himself sleep for more than half a month. Huan Quan's ancestors also regained their hearts, the two of them smiled at each other, and then both stood up and opened the array of laws. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 427. Protection fee received on April 27. The boss of the ship came to tell Yekong that Engong City was approaching and they were ready to go ashore. There is work, Lao Zhang is Uncle Yekong said politely. The boss of the ship nodded, turned away, and his attitude was much worse than before. It seems that this monk's strength is really not good. He is so kind to speak to us mortals. When he knew it early, he collected some spirit stones from him. Even the mortal ship boss has this idea, and the two male cults of the Xianxian family naturally have this idea. Brother Wan Yang, we will be at Engong Wharf tomorrow. Let's not forget to knock on that kid, said Li Wei, a monk on the third floor of Zuji. Wan Yang laughed, do you still remember this? Li Wei also laughed, I think the boy offered to pay for the ship as soon as he got on the ship. It seems that this guy is a fat sheep without shortage of spirits. The worship of our family disciples is far worse than that of the Xianxianmen. Extortion, how can it be enough? Yeah, Wan Yang nodded. They didn't conceal the little nun, and the nun didn't agree at all. The two masters, the master explained many times when the junior came down the mountain. They must be okay to find a problem, and they are almost going to Huangzhou City. How can they have trouble? Li Wei has waited all the way, of course, he did not want to, and said, Sister Lu, don't care about this, isn't it just a casual repair that just started building foundations, how can you say that something is wrong? There is no such strength with background loose repairs, there is nothing to worry about extortion, rest assured that we will be fine. In fact, where is the Sister Lu worrying about them? She is worried about the black-faced monk. At first sight, that black-faced monk had no spirit stone and no strength. He must have suffered against his two uncles. The black-faced monk was very interesting and could not let them succeed. Persuasion Lu was useless and had to say, if you really want to blackmail someone, after returning to the family, I must know master, and I won't come out with you in the future. The female Xiu said and ran away. These two men are the core figures in the family, so you are not afraid of false accusations. But that sentence does not come out with you, it still makes Wang Yang have a lot of pressure. He busily winked at Li Wei and chased the female monk. Xiaoying, don't be angry, it's okay if we don't blackmail him. Lu Ying then stopped and said, Uncle Xiewan. Black-faced monk, I can only help you like this, alas, it is difficult to repair casually, it is difficult to have no strength. At the beginning, if it were not for that person, how could I be a weak girl today? The man taught me, and when I saw the unevenness, I helped each other. Today, I also helped someone I didn't know. But when will that person see him? With Lu Ying's trouble, the two monks did not make things difficult for Ye Kong. When the ship arrived at Enggang Wharf, everyone left without saying a word. However, at the time of crossing, Ye Kong and the Nunchiu had a look. The Nunchiu's face was a bit red, but with bright eyes with a smile. Well, pretty little girl, I said, why don't you go after him? It's a pity that I saw it. Ancestor Huang Quan ancestor looked back and muttered. Ye Kong laughed, you old lady, a woman is your life. I don't even want to die if I see the little lady. Huang Quan ancestor laughed, a 12-year-old boy who made such a laugh, terrifying. Ye Kong said again, I have a few wives and don't want to provoke them. But if you like them, I'll go back and ask their teachers now. Huang Quan's ancestor quickly waved his hand, no, I'm not interested in these young girls and sisters. In fact, I like young ladies. I have a lot of fun, especially when I'm a big fan. But, wow, like your white gear. Ye Kong angered, I haven't changed my mouth yet, be careful to be seen through later. Huang Quan's ancestor listened, he could not recognize the identity of Ye Kong's stepfather, but could not help the identity of Bai Jier. Well, I have such a young mother, my ancestor, it's really sad. The old ancestor Huang Quan looked pained. The port area of Enggang City is just at the corner of the city. After getting off the boat, I heard the familiar village sound. This made Ye Kong Zhong have more expectations. Although he settled in Yunfu Zone, he never felt any sense of belonging. Only when he arrived in Angguo did he feel home. Only those who have been away for a long time will feel the pleasant sound of the hometown sound, and the hometown is amiable. Ye Kong swayed his clothes and strode toward the gate of the city. Unlike Wuguo, the monks on Angguo are a bit more low-key. Unlike Surabaya City, monks can often be seen flying in the air, and this scene in Angguo is very rare. Ye Kong doesn't want to be noticed until he leaves the city. Far away, it was ready to fly with a sword. But at this moment, a sneer sound suddenly sounded behind. Why does this Taoist walk so hurriedly? And there is another account and Taoist calculations. I saw a monk on the third floor of the base building posing a certain expression on the other side, standing in Ye Kong far away behind. Ye Kong thought that the two boys had given up on their plans to blackmail him, but he did not expect that he would die. What account do you have with your excellency? Is it possible that your excellency has been on a boat for a long time, and seasickness is confused? Ye Kong sneered. This monk on the third floor of the foundation is the monk of the unknown family, Li Wei. He originally wanted to blackmail with Wan Yang, but the little sister Lu Ying did not agree with them, so only let Wan Yang drag Lu Ying, then Li Wei came to blackmail alone. In Li Wei's view, even if he was alone, he could easily handle this cowardly monk. From Surabaya City, the two have been training in the field, and they met the water pirates on the road, and the two did not show up to help them, so we have protected your safety. You must pay the protection fee, Li Wei proudly take out a top-quality flying sword and arrogantly hold it in your hands. Hey, poor Xianxia, have you seen the top-quality magic weapon? This flying sword scares you out? Ye Kong snorted and shook his head with a smile. I thought that he was collecting protection fees from others. I did not expect Feng Shui to rotate. Today, some people received protection fees and received him. Then this Taoist, how much protection should we pay? Ye Kong asked with a smile. At a glance, Li Wei was frightened, and the lion said, 100 spirit stones per person. Dao's protection fee is not cheap. Ye Kong laughed in a stunned voice again, patted the storage bag, took out a small black bag, poured out a large number of crystal shining stones, from which to choose said, 100 spirit stones, that's a Zongpan spirit stone. Seeing the many spirit stones, and then looking at the bulging bag, Li Wei's eyes were widened. He already thought that the boy was rich, but he didn't expect to be so rich. Those are all Chinese spirit stones. One piece is worth 100 good quality spirit stones. As the core real person in the family, he only worships 15 spirit stones in a month. Apart from the overhead, he won't be able to save a good quality spirit stone in 1 year. It's not enough for 100 spirit stones per person. Now the price is up, Li Wei said cheekily. To the reader. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 428. 428th Challenge. Is the price going up? Ye Kong couldn't help laughing, bursting his hand into the black pouch, and raised his head. How much can the price go up? I think you might as well kill the treasure and kill us. These spirit stones are yours. Yes, my master not only has a lot of spirits, but also a lot of high-level materials. We kill you and we all belong to you. Huang Quan's ancestors knew Ye Kongsi very well. Ye Kong, the kid, hates murder and treasure the most. If he tries to find out that the other party has a murderous heart, he will feel safe to kill it. In fact, in the view of Huang Quan's ancestors, this is obviously pedantic. If you want to kill, you will kill. What are you talking about? However, Ye Kong thought that this was his bottom line. He did something and did nothing. If he wanted to kill others, he would also grab the treasure when he saw someone else. How is it different from those monks in the Kangnan continent? People have the conscience is the spirit of all things. Without the most basic conscience, people will be several times worse than the cruelest and most vicious animals. Ye Kong should not be such a person. For Li Wei, these two people were either kicked by the donkey or they were weird. How could they fool others to kill themselves? In fact, when he saw so many spiritual stones, he still had the heart of killing and winning treasure, but their family has always been gentle, not annoying outside, for fear of getting in the wrong, and causing the family to be destroyed. Played a role. So that Li Wei really escaped, but he doesn't know yet. Forget it, uncle, I'm in a good mood and don't want too much. You guys will give me 5 pieces of Zhongling Lingxi as protection fee and errand fee. Li Wei thought about it. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed with contempt. Say we're cowards. It turns out that you are timid than us and you have no courage to learn robbery. So let me fight you. If you win, I will give you 5. How about a middle-class spirit stone? When Li Wei heard it, he was even more confused. Are they afraid they were kicked by the donkey? If the black-faced monk said, it's worth it, after all, it's the 2nd floor of the building base, but the child said that the 4th layer of gas refining. When can the 4th layer of gas refining be used to provoke the 3rd layer of base construction? This is crazy, right? Do you think I made tofu? Not only Li Wei, but even Ye Kong was stunned. Although Huang Quan's ancestors lost their homes during the Yuan dynasty, he gave up his original exercises and now is a 4-layer refining gas. He can beat the 3-tier building base. Even Ye Kong didn't believe it. Xianxia, don't make a fool, you are not his opponent. Ye Kong drank with the dignity of master. but Huan Quan's ancestor never bought this kid's account. He snorted, "You little monks, they are really stupid and stubborn. What is the important thing to fight between monks? Is it not a magic weapon? Weapons, leapfrog confrontation is not a problem at all. My ancestors, no, I have a few artifacts for Xianxia, which are enough to fight. Why worry?" Yekong was told this, and he didn't speak, and Huan Quan's ancestors would not fight unsurely, so he made an inviting action, took a few steps back, and gave space to them. "Do you really let him fight with me?" Li Weiyu didn't believe it. The mind said that this minor revision seemed reasonable, but it didn't make much sense. Although the monks competed in magical instruments, they were also compared to spiritual and spiritual power. You are too low, and the power of the magical instruments is not enough. How can you fight against others? Also, your spiritual power is too low, the time and dexterity of controlling the magic weapon are not as good as the other party, and you will soon be exhausted, then you are waiting to die. After getting a nod from the black-faced monk, Li Wei smiled. The 5 spirit stones were settled. "Xiaodao, you are careful, I am a top-quality sword, but I won't take your life, you will fight immediately. But just a squeak, save my uncle, I hurt you by mistake." Huan Quan's ancestor laughed with a shame, "Although you are a top-notch magic weapon, you have no additional ability, and the power is not too great. I don't know who will squeak first." Li Wei was despised by this little guy 5 times, annoyed in his heart, and released a flying sword, roaring, "Little guy, I must speak out madly, I will teach you for your master, let you understand that arrogance also needs capital." Li Wei said, releasing a flying sword. Huan Quan's ancestor was also a storage bag, and the golden light beads were immediately offered. I saw that the golden light beads immediately hovered above his head, releasing countless white golden light, and laying several layers of defense around him. Li Wei saw this. Jing Guangzhi startled, but did not expect that the child's magic weapon was really powerful. He shot a Chinese-grade defense weapon, and it looked like it was not ordinary. He didn't even have a defense weapon himself. This kid was really rich. Next, Li Wei saw that the child sacrificed another top-quality golden flying sword, and then the flying sword was divided into 3 and greeted his own flying sword. "You have a strong sense of consciousness, and the 4 layers of refining gas can actually control 2 good magic weapons at the same time," Li Wei said, and he was not relaxed in his hands, controlling the flying sword to block the 3 golden swords. Li Wei's spiritual power is much better than Huan Quan's ancestors. Although the gold sword is much stronger than the magic sword, but in the hands of Huan Quan's ancestors, he can only exert 10% of his power. The 3 sword lights cannot stop Li Wei's a flying sword. "Child, if this sword is in your master's hands, I will not be an opponent." Li Wei was also secretly lucky at the moment. I did not expect that the master and apprentice were so powerful. Fortunately, the apprentice did not know the depth and bet on himself. Otherwise, he does not know who is extorting. "But this sword is in your hands, he. Li Wei smiled proudly, and increased the output of spiritual power, then the magic sword became stronger. Looking at his 3 golden lights and fighting and retreating, Huan Quan's ancestor's face remained unchanged, as if he had already figured this out. He slaps the storage bag, and even sacrifices the jade sword. "You can actually control 3 magic instruments," Li Wei's eyes widened. He must know that the number of control instruments is determined by God's consciousness. Even Li Wei can only control 3 magic instruments at the same time. Moreover, even if the 3 instruments are used together, the child of the other party does not use them so flexibly. The instruments cooperate with each other, but the actions are not consistent. It seems to be used with one heart, thinking about how powerful the consciousness is. But what surprised Li Wei more was still behind. I saw Huan Quan's ancestors' 3 golden sword lights plus a sapphire sword, Kankan and Li Wei's Fijian tide. At this time, Huan Quan's ancestor even opened a small brocade box and sacrificed 3 thin and vicious flying needles. Needle-shaped magical instruments consume less spiritual power, but the required consciousness is amazing, because this thing is exquisitely dexterous, especially a few needles. It is necessary for them to cooperate with each other and attack from multiple angles without letting them collide in the air. Li Wei has a little disbelief in his eyes. Even him, he can't control so many instruments at the same time, and these instruments are also flexible, as if 3 people are attacking themselves. Isn't it? Your sense is too strong, right? Li Wei was stunned, but then he laughed again. Little friend, although you have a lot of magic weapons and powerful knowledge, but your spiritual power is still too poor, you are definitely defeated. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 429. 429 Rich Man. Yekong certainly knows what he means. Controlling the magical instrument is not only required to be sacred, but spiritual output is also very important. Taking Huan Quan's ancestors' practice of refining the 4th layer of gas to control such a variety of magical instruments, I am afraid to support less than 3 minutes. Sure enough, after the flying needles flew up, bypassing the battle in the field and directly attacking Li Wei's body, the 3 flying needles actually had a phenomenon of spiritual unsustainability, and the 3 golden lights and sapphire swords fighting on the field began to change. Be slow. Yekong anxiously said, Xian'er, can you do it? Or we'll lose it? Huan Quan's ancestor laughed quaintly, boy, all the instruments and materials must be flexible, especially in battle, and all available items must be mobilized. In fact, the battle between the immortals can be diversified. Yes, it's not that 2 monks stood by one side and compared with the magical instrument. The ancestor was, patriarch, no, I will let the master see the classic combat case of high consciousness and low cultivation. Not only Yekong, but even Li Wei watched intently, depending on what kind of demon child the child was going to play. But what puzzled Li Wei was why the apprentice's tone was so great. Who are the apprentices of the 2? The 2 of them looked intently at the ancestor Huan Quan, who saw that he patted a storage bag, took out a piece of middle-class spirit stone, held his magic trick in his left hand, and continuously absorbed spiritual power from the spirit stone with his right hand. Yekong spit blood, this is your classic case. Yes. The other party is stronger than me, but it's cultivation, but it's spiritual power. I have Zongpan spirit stone to draw constantly, I don't believe that I have so many magic instruments, but he can't beat him. Yekong was almost vomiting blood. Brother, I used your hard stones to make a lot of hard work. You can't beat him with so many instruments. After you win, I will probably go bankrupt. No. Fighting for life and death, you can't care about the spirit stone. I am not as good as him, so I use the stone to grind him to death. In fact, this is really the case. Huan Quan's ancestors continued to add spiritual power. Then Li Wei didn't have this cost. He had to save a piece of inferior spirit stone. How could Huan Quan's ancestors be so luxurious? Li Wei smiled bitterly, this is a rich owner. People would rather spend dozens of pieces of Zhongling Lingxi and fight to the end, rather than give themselves 5. This guy really has a personality. Seeing that there was another one who did not make a shot with himself, Li Wei simply withdrew the flying sword and said, forget it, this battle is a tie, your protection fee is waived, my family is in a hurry, and I will not be accompanied. Go ahead. This kid is really timid, and when he finds it difficult, he wants to slip away, but how can Yekong let him leave, driving the shield sword, and blocking Li Wei's way? Daiyu, what do you mean? I have already said it, Li Wei roared, if he didn't understand that he had hit the iron plate at the moment, he would be really stupid. Yekong sneered, an adult has to pay for his actions. Come and talk, and walk away. You will be charged for protection for a while, but you will not be charged for a while. Huh, when you are here, you have a big mouth. What? Then what do you want? Li Wei was so depressed and seldom did a bad thing that he kicked on the iron plate, which was unlucky. If you hold the heart of murder and treasure, you are already a corpse at this moment. But you will never forgive others easily. What you leave behind will spare you life. Li Wei was originally poor, and now he has got a top-grade flying sword. If he hadn't, he might as well die. He shouted at the moment, Dao. Don't deceive people too much. This is my sphere of influence in Huangzhou Wanjia. If you rob me today, someone will hunt you down tomorrow. Li Wei wanted to intimidate, but unexpectedly the black-faced monk froze a bit, and then blurted out, Wanjia, Wangsuan real person. Its brother Li Wei felt relieved. In fact, even if this kid is from Wanjia, Yekong is going to teach him a lesson. After all, the real person Wan had no favor to him, and Yekong had no debts to pay back. However, when he heard of Wanjia, Yekong thought of another person and asked, what is the name of the female nun who cultivated in the mid-refining period among the three of you? Lu Ying. Oh, it's her. Yekong then realized why she was familiar with her on the boat. It turned out that this girl turned out to be the little girl she had rescued in a refugee shed outside Huangzhou City. She was only 14 years old. It's been almost 4 years since the 18th Women's Congress changed, and I haven't even met. Now that Yekong is here, there is no need to make things difficult. After all, Wanjia accepted Lu Ying's little girl, and she also counts herself. After all, the name Yekong is a troublemaker. If other families, I would have driven the little girl away. In the future, you will blackmail others and let your eyes be brighter. If you have eyes without beads, that's an asshole, Yekong cursed. Li Wei knew that this time the danger was appropriate, and he didn't dare to talk back. Then saw Yekong take out another 52 gold ingots and hand them to Li Wei. Help me do something, and give this ingot to the girl named Lu Ying. After speaking, Yekong took Huan Quan's ancestor to set up his shield sword, turned it into a streamer, and left. The purpose of Yekong's return to Jinyuanbao is to make himself think about it, and to tell the little girl that everyone is not involved. After all, I saw the little girl's slick body at the beginning, and it is quite interesting now. If I often see this ingot in the future, maybe I will have occasional thoughts, which is not good for spiritual practice. However, this embarrassed Li Wei. He came with Lu Ying on his back. If he took the gold ingot back, Lu Ying would have to ask. He was not afraid of Lu Ying's false accusation. He was worried about how to say at that time. If there was no gold ingot, he said that he had not kept up. But with this gold ingot, it would be difficult to say. If bragging said that he won, then Wanyang, be sure to ask yourself for benefits. If you say defeated, it will be too shameful. After thinking about it, he thought of a lie. Since this person took out the gold ingot, this ingot must have something to do with Lu Ying. So he went back to Lu Ying and said that he wanted to blackmail the kid, but the kid knelt down and begged for mercy, said that he knew Lu Ying, and took out this ingot to testify, so he spared him. Although this lie had loopholes, Lu Ying was not deeply involved in the world. In addition, it was not convenient to explain the origin of this ingot. Blushing and holding the ingot away. Seeing Lu Ying's appearance, Li Wei believes that the two may be a bit nasty, so Lu Ying will certainly not tell Wanyang about this, so he simply told Wanyang that he hadn't met, and the matter stopped. However, this matter made Lu Ying very uncomfortable. The black-faced man is really useless. Why can't you take out this ingot when you can't beat it? It makes me and you have a leg. In fact, the two are innocent. Isn't it bad for me to be innocent? It's awful. No guts. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 430. Back to Nandu. Of course, Yekong didn't know that a beautiful crush had a grudge against him. While flying, he talked with Huang Quan's ancestors again. Although the ancestors' fighting method just made him unhappy, he suddenly had new ideas from it. Old ancestor, since absorbing the spiritual stone can supplement the spiritual power, why can't I absorb a large amount of metallic spiritual stone to strengthen the weak metallic spiritual power in the Sea of Qi? Yekong asked. Huang Quan's ancestor nodded. In fact, I have already thought about your idea. Although it is barely available, it can still be difficult to operate in practice. Yekong shook his head. What's the problem? Try to earn the spirit stone in the future. There are adjustment points for spirit stones in every square market. Among the various types of spirit stones, the metal spirit stones are cheaper. We earn the spirit stones, and then replace it with a metallic spirit stone, and finally absorb it. Can you solve this imbalance? Huang Quan's ancestor said, how can it be so easy? Boy, I ask you, have you ever seen a monk who practiced by sucking spirit stones? Yekong thought about it. Really not. Huang Quan's ancestor asked again, would you make a spiritual stone without you being a monk? Then you can talk about the reasons. Yekong scratched his head and said modestly. Although I am also a real human being, I am still a novice, so please give me pointers. The old ancestor Huang Quan smiled with satisfaction. Boy, let the old ancestors teach you, although a lot of spiritual power is stored in the spiritual stone, but those are not your spiritual power, so you can only stay in your body. After a while, and if you refine the spiritual power in the spirit stone and want to take it for your own use, you will find that after refining, most of the spiritual power disappears, and only a little bit is left in the end. So I say it's barely available, but it's not really a good idea. What to do? I know the best way is to find a place with ample aura of gold, but where can I find it? I asked many people, and no one knows that there is such a place. Yekong vomited with some frustration. Breathed. After discovering that the spiritual force cyclone was unbalanced, and even had deviated from the center point, Yekong did not dare to cultivate. If he continued to practice in this way, he would be more and more troublesome, and it is also very likely that he will go into the magic. I don't know how Wuxing Sanren cultivated. Yekong sighed again. Huang Quan's ancestor looked frustrated and laughed. You don't have to worry about it. The road to cultivation is difficult. Often a small problem will make people stop moving forward, but it is easy to say. If you encounter Xianyuan someday, thousands of miles a day is normal. Xianyuan, is it too slim? Huang Quan's ancestor said, are you still weak at Xianyuan? The qualifications of a hybrid spirit root are unique. If not for Xianyuan's care, how can you have today and how fast? Yekong sighed, well, then wait for Xianyuan to come. Angong City is just over 100 miles from the south, and mortals ride horses for just an hour. Yekong Yujian flies even faster. Without saying a few words, the tall blue-gray city walls of the south capital emerge from afar. The huge sky of the southern capital is covered with white clouds and the breeze blows slightly. A white golden flying sword hovered quietly. A young boy in a blue shirt stood upright. Ren Qingfeng brushed the long hair scattered on his bun, and his deep and firm eyes looked at the south capital in front of him, staring. Silent. This is my hometown. I once lived here, fought here, defended myself, protected my family, and defended the city. What I left here was my first love, first murder, and first practice. There used to be so many lively faces here, people who loved, people who hated. Sitting alone in the middle of the night, doing embroidery alone, I looked up at my elder lady who smiled heartily from time to time. Her loyal and hardy but delicate and kind-hearted but murderous elder brother Yewei, with a stinking face all day but in front of the ancestral hall from time to time, Zhang Wuyud, the teacher who left a stack of books, though the city walls were there, those faces went away. At that moment, Yekong's eyes burst into tears. The surface was calm, but his heart was surging like a tidal wave. At that moment, he couldn't help shouting, "Hell, you can go to heaven. As long as you live happily with these people, even if you don't cultivate the immortal? Even if it's only one day." This ups and downs were too violent. Yekong suddenly felt that his dachshund was almost collapsed, and the figure standing on the flying sword couldn't help shaking. Huan Quan's ancestors clearly grasped this, and he said lightly, "It is extremely difficult to search for immortal roads. There are barriers, thorns everywhere, and carelessness is the abyss. Only with a firm and unshakable Tao heart, it is indifferent to the cold and warm in the world. Only for the sake of avenues and immortals will there be hope of eternal life. There are tens of thousands of immortalists in the world. If you count other planets, it will be countless. Anyone who has achieved success is a person who is obsessed with indifference and indifferent world feelings, otherwise a long life, watching their parents die, their wives die, their children and grandchildren die. How many people can survive?" "You're wrong." Yekong had calmed his mind and said lightly. "In my hometown, there are no cultivators there. Everyone lives no more than 100 years. I want my parents to live forever, but I don't have the ability. But in this magical continent, and I am also a cultivator, I will do my best to try for an opportunity for them, even if it is a small possibility. I will try my best to try it, otherwise I will never stop." Yekong looked up and looked at the top of the sky. The sky was so blue and so vast, so awesome. He whispered, "A lonely life, even if eternal life, is just a prisoner forever." Huan Quan's ancestor chuckled and shook his head. "These ideas are probably the ideas of your hometown. They are too idealistic and out of reach, but they are so desirable. Southern capital Yefu. I haven't seen it for a few years, it's still so clean and fresh here. On the open ground in front of the house, there is a group of sparrows hopping around to find food. The 5 characters of General Nan's mansion in that town are still so red and bright. Yekong knows that this must be what the people in the neighborhood do, who they should love and who they should hate. In fact, everyone has a scale in their hearts." Although Yekong's footsteps subconsciously wanted to walk over and walked across the door, he still stopped, with one glance, like other passers-by, continued to walk forward. He is no longer the fledgling boy at the beginning. He has gone through many conspiracies. From the glance just now, he can see that Yefu is different from before, and even smells the smell of traps. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 431. 4 or 3 lead snake out of hole. The 2 giant stone lions on the left and right in front of Yefu Gate have now become 2 small flower gardens, which are full of sunflower-shaped flowers, but only small palm-shaped flowers. Each flower is like a pair of eyes, a pair waiting for bloodshot. Dense eyes. Yekong has already experienced this situation once. The last time he was chased and killed by Lu Zhan, the guy used this kind of wooden exercises. Yekong almost hit his way. When, the last time is enough? Obviously, there are wooden surveillance arrays set up by Qingming Valley. Yekong believes that Lu Zhan has no power and does not have the courage to monitor here. It must be the old thing of Shi Dingfeng, and his purpose is the Zikang token in his hands. Yekong is often called a hypocrite, but he feels that Shi Dingfeng is actually a hypocrite. He is very gentle to the little monk, but also tolerant to some small altruists. But when he comes to real benefits, he is better than anyone else. The competition is fierce, but then again, who can resist such a huge temptation on this continent? Although Yekong didn't know what the Zikang token was, but he knew that this thing was definitely a very precious thing. Since Qingming Valley is laying down a magic circle in front of Yefu Gate, the person watching it must be not far away. Yekong walked into the building of a tea shop in the distance. Although it is far away from Yefu, he can take full advantage of the surrounding situation. Take a look. Yekong held a teacup with no intention of drinking tea, but his gaze swept across the street in front of the gate of Yefu, sweeping everyone passing by with the eye technique. You're useless like this, said Huang Quan's ancestor, sitting in a small chair cross-legged. The monks are not mortals. They won't walk outside. How can you tell this? Yekong thought about it. This surveillance array is just like the probe of the earth. The people who really monitor are hiding in a distant room and don't have to walk outside. Yekong thought for a while, thinking about it. Since you are hiding from people, I will lead the snake out of the hole. In the early morning of the second day, the weather was a little hazy, and the sun did not dare to hide behind the thick clouds. The overcast weather made people's hearts gloomy. There were screams of applause from the far end of the bluestone pavement. Go! The sound of a lame sheep came from the crackling leather whip, and a flock of sheep appeared at the end of the road. A bad old man came over in a dirty sheepskin mule. The big sheep walked in front, and the unfavorable lambs in the back made mischievous disturbances, which caused constant complaints from businesses on both sides of the road. This is the gathering area of the government gate and high gate compound. How can these animals usually make trouble? What made the merchants on both sides complain is that after the flocks of sheep left all the way in front of them, the sheepman also knew that he was embarrassed, and while driving the flock, he couldn't help but apologize to the merchants on both sides. After a while, Yang Ji came to the herbal tea shop diagonally opposite Yefu, asked for a cup of herbal tea and asked, "Brother, may I ask, is this farm market over there? I am a sheep farmer in the countryside and I do know the way." He, the countryman entered the city for the first time. The middle-aged man selling herbal tea looked at a flock of sheep standing in front of the stall, and said impatiently, "In Nanjing, you should finish drinking and leave. I'm really losing money on the two big copper plates." "Thank you." The goat hurriedly finished the tea and hurried the sheep to the opposite side. Having rushed for a long time, the sheep were also tired. "I have water to drink and food to eat." "Poor, you are all hungry, right?" Yang Yan said to himself, driving the sheep into the two little flowers outside the gate of Yefupo, and then sat down and took out a large cake and simmered, and the flock of sheep ate in Huapu to eat. The herbal tea stall owner didn't notice it at first, looked up to see the scene, and shouted quickly, "Hey, the one who drives the sheep, drive your sheep away. This is not the place where you put your sheep." The sheep cricket laughed. "It's just some grass flowers. We have more in the countryside. It's not worth the money. When the sheep sell, I'll pay you." The owner of the tea stall ran over and shouted, "It's not a question of money. You sheep is so unreasonable. You know, this is the Ye family. The 8th master Ye family who saved our entire city is from this door. How can you do it? Yefu, our most respected person in the southern metropolis. Be careful, I tied you to the officer." In the distant second floor, Yekong couldn't help smiling bitterly when he heard what the man shouted. "This uncle, if you really help me, don't bother." However, the sheep weird that Huang Quan's ancestors found was not a fuel-saving lamp. The old man immediately stood up with a whip to catch the sheep, and said arrogantly, "Old man, I first entered the city. The 5 young masters are the worst, bullying men and women. It's so bad that he has to be carried on his back when he goes out, and he has to be by others to help him lose his belt, and—" The man watched the sheep faltering and biting, then he drove the flocks out of her but could drive away the bite over here and drive away over there to eat, and the sheep falcon seemed to know to gnaw their hometown that thing. Then more Nandu citizens discovered this uncivilized scene, and all came to catch the sheep. When the sheep pupa finally drove the sheep away, the huapuli had been eaten and stomped by the herds of the sheep, making a mess. However, it is strange that there are no monks in so many people who drive sheep. Huh. I didn't expect you to be so cautious. I don't believe you broke your surveillance formation and you don't care. Yekong snorted and waited quietly. Sure enough, after a while, there was movement. I saw Yafu's side door suddenly opened a gap, a fat monk leaned out his head, followed by a skinny man, both of them are in the late cultivation of gas. Brother Zhang Jiai, don't be so cautious, is Yekong really so powerful? He is just a 6-layered spiritual root, and besides, that sheep goat is indeed a rural person, and he has not cultivated muttered behind. You understand the fart, said the fat man Zhang Jiai, Yekong's kid is so scheming, you can't imagine it, be careful. Do nt look at him as low, the magic weapon, and the unknown burst spell end. It's terrible. You did nt join Qingming Valley at the beginning, so you do nt know. My brother and I saw him with my own eyes, and all the ancestors of the Dan period were killed by him. I'm afraid I must be ridiculed. Slim was also a little scared, and stretched his head to look around. Since he is so powerful, why send us 3 to wait for him? Isn't that a death? Zhang Jiai laughed, how did you forget that the ancestor laid a magical beast here? As soon as he entered the maze, and we will inform the ancestor when he comes. The thin man said frustrated, I'm still going to catch him alive to receive the reward money.